Hi guys, welcome to Sheria. Sheria is a platform whereby we educate the common mwananchi on the law with the aim to equip and empower you. Karibu sana. My name is Maina, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And today we're going to continue with the topic of marriage. We're going to handle void marriages. So unaweza jiuliza, what is a void marriage? I believe you have heard the term void ab initio being thrown around in some circles. That means it wasn't, from the very beginning, it wasn't valid. Yani haikuwa sawa. So what are these kinds of marriages? Because you really don't want to find yourself in one. Number one, where either party has not reached the age of 18, which is the legal age. Yani yeye si adult. That kind of person cannot be able to enter into a marriage. Now we have a tendency whereby people get married at the age of 16, juu mapenzi ni mingi, but that cannot be considered as a marriage. So whereby one is 16 and another person is 21, that is not a valid marriage. The second scenario is whereby either party was not present during the time of the marriage ceremony. Now, I believe one may ask, nitakosaje kukua kwa wedding yangu? I was also wondering the same thing. How? But you'll find that there are places whereby, especially in customary marriages, where someone is quote unquote sold off or married off to somebody in their absence, and they're only collected, so to speak, like an item from their homes and taken to the other person's home. In that situation, that marriage was void from the very beginning. The third scenario is whereby either party is not truly aware of the identity of the other party. What does that mean? Yani ulikuwa na a very wrong perception of huyu msee. Wewe ulikuwa unadhani this is this, but this is another person. There are people who use fake names. They lie about their background, who they are. In such a situation, you technically got married to a person who does not exist. Now, if you're able to prove that, that means that the marriage was void from the very beginning. The fourth scenario is whereby either party gets married for fraudulent reasons. Mostly we have heard about people getting married to get a visa, yeah? But in Kenya, we can also say people get married for property. Sindio, get married to you, mweze kupata property pamoja alafu akutoke. If you can prove that that is the case, you can show that that marriage was void from the very beginning. The fifth scenario is whereby either party did not give consent. Again, there are still forced marriages to this date in this country. Now, where a party has not said freely, yes, I want to get married to this person, then that cannot be considered a valid marriage. The other scenario is whereby the parties are in a prohibited relationship. What does that mean? Either this is your brother, your cousin, your nephew, your niece, your sister, even your sister-in-law, and such kind of things. In that situation, that cannot be considered as a valid marriage. And also, another scenario is whereby the court has issued an order that prevents the parties from getting married. This is whereby there's an objection where it could have been claimed that either party is in a subsisting marriage. That means already ako married. And we have seen this happen multiple times, whereby utapata watu wanaoana and somebody comes and says, apana, hamwezi oana, hii wedding haiwezi endelea because this is my husband or this is my wife. That thing actually has ground and can cause that marriage to be void from the very beginning. It is important to note that under the Islamic law, one can marry a cousin. So if the parties are cousins but are getting married under the Islamic kind of marriage, under the Islamic law, that is okay and it can be considered as a legal marriage. Next, we're going to talk about something called voidable marriages. So what's a voidable marriage? A voidable marriage it can be made valid ama it can be voided. That means it can be made invalid. So iko tu hapo katikati. So one move can make it either valid or can make it invalid completely. So what kind of marriage is this? Also a situation you really do not want to find yourself in. Number one, either party has failed or is incapable of consummating the marriage, even after the ceremony and up until that point. In this case, consummating a marriage is the act of having sexual intercourse. Now, many are worried that when it gets to that point, what if either party is not able to consummate the marriage, maybe for medical reasons or for any other reason? What happens? Am I stuck in this situation? Now, that's why this is a ground for a marriage being voidable, meaning you can head on to the courts and petition that the marriage is annulled. This will mean that the marriage actually never happened. The second situation that can cause your marriage to be termed as a voidable marriage is whereby either party has bouts of insanity. That means ako sawa alafu hayuko sawa. It doesn't matter the medical condition, but the insanity is what is key, and that aspect really affects that relationship. The other scenario is whereby no notice of intention to marry was ever issued. So what do I mean? The moment mumeamua mnaenda kuoana, as beautiful as that moment is, there are legal things that you should do. Number one is issue a notice, not less than 21 days and not more than 3 months to the registrar, that is the registrar of marriages, and to the person in charge of the place where you guys are planning on getting married. If it is a church, you go to your pastor or bishop and give them a notice. The notice consists of a declaration that both of you do not fall under the prohibited kind of relationships. You're your brother, sister, cousin, and so on. Also, your age, your names, your residence, the names of your parents, and where they can be found, that is their residence, and also your marital status. Remember, you cannot get married if you already are considered a husband or a wife to someone else in a legal and registered marriage. And finally, the notice also has to have the date and the place where you intend to conduct your marriage ceremony. Now, another ground why your marriage may be considered voidable is whereby an objection was raised against your marriage and the objection has not yet been withdrawn. Many people, mkienda kwa marriage, mkienda kwa wedding, you always see the pastor asking, or whoever is officiating, does anyone object to these two people coming together? And many people usually think it's for the dramatic effect or just someone being kind, but it's actually a legal requirement. So in the event someone actually does raise their hand and say, yeah, I do object, and it's not your friend trying to make jokes, it's a true objection. And up until that objection is withdrawn, that marriage can be considered voidable. So one may ask, what if we already signed the marriage certificate? Again, that marriage will be considered voidable up until that objection is withdrawn. Once it's withdrawn and you register your marriage certificate, mko poa. Another reason why the marriage can be considered voidable is when the person officiating that marriage did not have the license to do so. Meaning if they're operating as a pastor, maybe hakuwa na license vizuri, they're ni pastor wa mtaa. Like they're not registered to officiate that marriage. So you really need to check who's officiating your marriage. And finally, if you do not register your marriage, and how do you do this? The certificate is taken to the registrar by either one of you or the person officiating the marriage. Once the registrar receives it, they enter it into the register of marriages. They transfer all those details, and that is a copy of that certificate. So unaonanga watu wanaekewa certificate kwa socks, si ya kushinda hapo. Remember to take it to the registrar so that you can be considered married. And remember, failure to register that marriage attracts a fine. And finally, we are going to touch on annulment of a marriage. So what is annulment? Annulment is different from divorce or dissolution of a marriage. This is why dissolution acknowledges that a marriage did exist, but the two people are now apart. They are no longer in the marriage. Now, an annulment makes it as though the marriage never happened. So when or what are the grounds for getting an annulment? Now, one petitions to the court, say you are the one who is grieved by the actions of the other party. You petition to the court for an order of annulment. So in what situations can one petition for annulment? Number one, where the parties have not consummated the marriage. Like we have said, unaweza ingia thinking things are one way, but find things are the other way. Are you stuck? No, there's a way out. How? Annulment of the marriage. The second reason is whereby either of the parties did not give consent. Like we said, both parties have to give consent, come and agree that indeed we do want to be in this union. The third reason is whereby one party was not present in the ceremony. Like we said, unauzwa tu, and where you don't even know what is happening. That cannot be considered as a marriage, and it's a ground for annulment. Number 4 is whereby a man who at the very time of celebrating the marriage was not aware of the pregnancy that the woman is carrying, and all of a sudden realizes after the marriage that this lady is pregnant and I'm not responsible for this pregnancy. Now, hapo ndipo kizungumkuti inaingia. Ako na ball, but si yako. Now, will you stay or will you not stay? The law gives you a way out if that is not your pregnancy. And keyword, at the time of entering into this marriage, you had no idea that your spouse was pregnant. Another reason for annulling the marriage is whereby you find out that a party is married. Like you've said, watu wanacheza huku nje. So you might find that the person who you think is your spouse is also a spouse to 3 or 4 other people. So that's a ground for annulling that marriage. And also, we also have a situation whereby you guys have gotten married and right, maybe in that very few months, you find out that, hey, your cousin sounds like my cousin. Your brother-in-law sounds like my brother. And you guys realize that you are actually under a prohibited relationship whereby the both of you cannot legally get married. That marriage can be annulled. And finally, another ground whereby you can petition for annulment is whereby either party suffers from bounds of insanity. And again, in all these grounds, the key element is at the very time of celebrating that marriage, you had no idea of any of these grounds. Meaning, you had no idea that unaolewa. You had no idea that either party was not able to consummate the marriage. You had no idea that either party was already married, and so on and so forth. So what are the effects of annulment? Again, it will be as though the marriage never existed. However, it does not affect any sort of responsibility you have to clear any debts, whereby maybe you guys were married, alafu mkachukua kama tuseme loan, ama guarantee your spouse for some kind of, I don't know, financial assistance. And all of a sudden umeachana na unasema hiyo ni mzigo wake. As long as you did that while you are in that marriage, the annulment will not have any effect on your responsibility. So basically, bado utahave kulipa. There are also other spousal privileges that come in, especially in the Evidence Act, whereby there are conversations that are had and they have spousal privilege. Now, any conversation that you guys had while you are married, the spousal privileges still apply, and the annulment of that marriage hai affect. So maybe kuna vitu mliongea na maybe unaitwa uonge kuzihusu mahali, and that spousal privilege, the fact that mlikuwa mmeoana, ina protect your conversation. Annulling that marriage does not mean that sasa your privilege imetoka. It still remains. Now, what period of time do you have kuweza approach court to annul this marriage? You have 12 months, that is 1 year, right? So all this, kama umeifigure out, kimbia, before that 1 year expires. One may ask, what happens if the 1 year expires? You'll have to wait it out and file for a divorce. I hope you have learned something today. void marriages, voidable marriages, situations basically you really don't want to find yourself in, and how to get out of it. That is what we had for you today here at Sheria. I hope you really enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Remember, if you're watching us and you're yet to subscribe to our channel, do click that subscribe button. Send this video to your friends. Share with them. Let them know if they can get out of it or not. If their marriage is valid, voidable, or void. And don't forget to share comments, ask questions on this topic or any other topic you'd like us to deal with. For today, that is us, and I hope you really enjoyed. Until next time, be blessed.